Hey, sister girls, it's your big sister Abby Rodell, and this is Full Roster, your go to dating podcast for advice, hilarious stories, tough love, and a deep dive into the shit show that is the dating world. Welcome to Full Roster. Hello, sister girls. Welcome to this week's episode of Full Roster. I have some good news. A couple weeks ago, I was talking about how my Instagram page finally hit 100 followers for the Full Roster pod. This week we're at 300. So thank you guys so much for those who came and joined on Instagram. Really, really appreciate it. We're growing and I could not be happier with that. Another thing that I wanted to talk about though is last week I watched my episode with my parents and which, I was not worried about it. My parents are very open to sex. We have grown up being open to sex. Like we are a very pro sex household. We do not get embarrassed discussing sex. So that I was not uncomfortable about that at all. What I noticed though is how much I cuss. And listen, I knew I was a cusser. I know I cuss, but it was bad. And at one point I said, dang, I don't know if it's because I'm watching it with you guys or if I'm just cussing more this episode, but I'm really noticing how bad I'm cussing. And my dad goes, no, it's every episode. So I'm going to try to be more cautious about that. I don't want my cussing to push people away, but it is also who I am. So there's going to be an F bomb that drops every now and then. I'm sorry, Grandma. She does not like the F word. She's open to all cussing except for the F word. So I'm especially going to try to watch that word. I have gotten out of hand with it and I'm going to work on it. I'm going to try to do better this week. I notice that I do it when I'm like really passionate about something or I'm like really trying to get my point across, like I'm driving something home. So I will make a more conscious effort to not be such a pirate. With that being said, let's get into our roster rundown. We've got some interesting topics to talk about this week. The first one being MLB. It ain't all about reality TV shows this week, people. So I don't know how this is just now coming across my desk. I have no idea how I did not hear about this sooner, but we're going to talk about the MLB height differences. So, like, it changed at the end of the 2025 season. Now in 2026, the height rosters are back to normal. But last year is when they implemented, I want to say this right, so I'm reading it off my card. The standardized measurements for the automated ball strike systems, ABS. 225 hitters had to reduce their height from the previous season. Is that shocking? Absolutely not. So what happens is this ABS system, it tracks the strike zones. And the taller you are, the larger the strike zone is going to be. So these guys probably want a smaller strike zone, but they are getting measured very professionally now. They are doing no shoes, no hat. They have to do it between 10 a.m. and noon so that there's no shrinkage. They have to have their heels together, knees straight, and postured up against the wall. So no slouching. I mean, this is like real measurements now. So 6 players were reduced by 3 inches, 48 players by 2 inches, and 171 by 1 inch. And this is why we do not trust men with their heights. I swear to God, they add 2 to 3 inches every time. They genuinely think they are as tall as they were when they were playing football in high school and everyone added 2 inches. I did it too. I added 2 inches. I was 6'2" in high school when I was playing basketball. So everybody does it, right? But the difference is when women stop playing sports and on their Bumble profile, they list their normal actual height. Men don't do that shit. They keep their 2 inches that they played with in football back in the day, the good old days, and they keep that shit on their Bumble. That's why when I'm doing this online dating stuff, I don't swipe right on men who are 6 foot tall, who say they are 6 foot tall. I swipe on 6'2" and up because I swear to God, I've gone on dates where men say they're 6'2" and we show up and I'm taller than the man. So I cannot be bothered with that shit. I know people are going to come at me for being, callous about the height thing. I'm freaking 6 foot tall. Okay. I don't want to date a man shorter than me. I just am not attracted to men who are shorter than me. If I could be, I would be, okay? It's just not something that I am able to get past. Do not come for me on the height. Second is Married to Medicine. I know that's a reality show, but stick with me. They were doing their reunion, and the women on it, a lot of them are doctors, hence the name Married to Medicine. They started talking about how HIV is we're seeing like more of an increase of HIV in women, especially Black women who are diagnosed with HIV 8 times more than white women. I didn't do all the research on that. I'm sure I could take a guess, but I don't want to get it wrong on why that's happening. So the doctors on the show mentioned that if you're sexually active with more than one partner, you need to be on PrEP, which is like an HIV preventative. And that really shocked me because this is something like I'm very naive about. I like to think that I'm pretty educated on STIs, but I mean, there's no way I know everything about them. And so I do want to say this correctly, but I was so naive about HIV. I nearly thought it was impossible to get for women. I don't know why I thought that. I thought that you would have to use like an infected needle or something. You had a higher chance of, using an infected needle than you did getting it from sexual activity in a woman. Again, I'm not sure why I thought that. It's just never really something that we talked about that I remember talking about or remember it posing a risk towards women. But it really is. And it's especially affecting women over 50 who are going through menopause who no longer can get pregnant because they're not using protection anymore. They, can't get pregnant. So it's affecting Black women over 50 especially, not that it's not affecting every other race or anything like that, but it's just more prominent in the Black community, and I just wanted to talk about it on here because, again, it's something that I just didn't think about. So, if you're wanting to protect yourself more, maybe look into PrEP if you've got multiple sexual partners and you want to protect yourself. I would suggest doing some research on it. Now we're gonna get into the TV drama, the reality of it all, and we are, of course, talking about Scamanda, because how could we not? Nothing crazy new has come about. They have a show coming out called In the City, and Kyle and Amanda are 2 big people who are on it. I'm not super thrilled with that just because they're already awkward as hell to watch in Summer House. I don't really want to watch them any more than we are, it's awkward. But there's a ton of other cast members, and Lindsay is on it, and she's hysterical. The teaser did show Amanda and West together. I don't know if they made that teaser just because of the all Scamanda going on and they want more views, or if we're really going to learn more about the Scamanda of it all in this show. Amanda did come out and say that her and Kyle have been not living together since October. So I would venture to guess that that is probably when her and West started hooking up, if not sooner. I mean, people are speculating the summer of last year. So it could very well have been that, but I'm definitely thinking like October when Amanda and Kyle finally separated and started living, separately. I could definitely see it really starting then. With all of the negatives floating around Scamanda, here's some positives that have come from it. Sierra is getting a lot of opportunities, great press. I love that for her. The Carl and Lindsay commercial, I think it was B-Dubs, did a commercial together and Carl is wearing those green shoes. Hilarious. And Lindsay is like pretending to console him in the commercial. I think it's just a really freaking funny moment. Both of them are profiting off of it. I absolutely love that. Jesse Solomon, his music career is taking off. He's getting good press for that. His song, it has been stuck in my head for like 3 days, you guys. I guess I'll start. Like that part I have heard nonstop on social media. I cannot stop singing it. Lastly, Loverboy might make it after all, you guys. It's getting great press. People want to support Kyle through this. Loverboy might come out on top. Until I have sponsorships, here's a quick plug, sisters. If you're all about fashion, fitness, and lifestyle inspo, head over to my LTK. I'm dropping my favorite looks, workout must haves, and items I use on the daily. The best part about it is you can shop everything in one place. Follow me at Abby Rodell and get in on all of the looks I am serving. Welcome back, sister girls. This week in Sister Circle, we are going to talk about when you go from lovers to roommates. And boy, oh boy, is this something that I know too much about. I have had 2 relationships, 2 long term relationships, in which ended with us just being roommates. One of them was my marriage, and one of them was my most recent long term relationship that was for 3 years. So this is something I know too much about. This episode is absolutely not me dogging my exes. If anything, it's me taking accountability for my part in the relationship and how everything ended. This is going to be more of an episode where I'm like being very vulnerable here. This is going to be a very vulnerable episode for me. This is going to be me talking about personal things that I've talked about in therapy and things that I've learned about myself. So, this is not at all me bashing my exes, not even close. If anything, it's I'm bashing myself. Something that I learned very recently about myself that I genuinely wish that I would have known sooner is kind of my communication style and my attachment style. My attachment style is avoidant. I tend to avoid being open with my emotions. Even though I am a very emotional person, I tend to withhold those from people and I try to fix things myself before opening up to people. I rarely like open up to my friends. If I'm struggling with something, I rarely will tell my family because I just don't want to be a burden on people and I don't want people to be worried about me. So, when I go through everyday life stressors and stuff like that, I just don't really talk about them. I just get through them. Now, if it's something really big, like when I went through my narcissist relationship or when I went through everything with my previous employer, that I opened up to people about because that was a really horrible time. Those two were really horrible times for me, probably the lowest that I've been in life. So I do open up when it's that bad, but everyday stuff that I'm struggling with, or if something inconveniencing happens to me, I just rarely talk about it. So I've learned a lot about myself in therapy about this avoidant attachment. And this comes very into play with this roommate situation where in my relationships, I start to feel, you know, like I'm pulling away a little bit and I have a hard time communicating that to my partner because I feel like it's a me problem. It's something that I want to fix. So, for example, in my marriage, my ex-husband says that was blindsided by me saying that I wanted a divorce, and a huge part of that was because I wasn't communicating how unhappy I was with him. I thought that I could fix it myself. I thought that I could fix our issues myself because I didn't think he was different. I just knew that my feelings had changed. And so I was doing whatever I could to change my feelings back to where they were, and it obviously did not work out for us. Another thing that I'm gonna add that I just recently learned about myself is that every relationship that I have had so far has led with physical intimacy first instead of emotional intimacy. And that's a huge reason why I'm not having sex with people. It's actually been over a year since I've been physically intimate with anybody. And it's because I'm trying to change the way that I date people. Before I was very sex leading, very physical. My love language is physical touch. So it's so easy for me to show affection through physical touch, hugging, kissing, hand holding, just normal touching stuff. And then of course sex. I I mean, I had sex the first day I met my ex-boyfriend. My ex-husband, we definitely were sexually active before we were emotionally in touch. So I just feel like I lead with sex or have in my past before getting emotionally attached to somebody. And I feel like that physical touch makes you feel closer to somebody than you really are. And so once that physical attachment started kind of wearing off, I realized, dang, I'm not that emotionally in depth with these guys. Like we might not be as emotionally compatible as I once thought we were. And so that's kind of when my relationships have started to fizzle out. So I'm trying to do it differently this time, but this is something that I know so much about you guys. I've experienced this. Everything I'm saying in this episode, almost everything is going to be coming from experience. If you're unsure of where your relationship stands or not, here's some questions that you can ask yourself to maybe get some clarity. When was the last time you kissed your partner for more than a few seconds? Even more than a peck? When was your last date night? Do you still flirt? Do most of your conversations revolve around logistics or things that you have to do? Do you feel lonelier when you're with your person or when you're alone? Do you tell your partner first when you have news? Do you touch each other casually, like not in a sexual way? Do you go to bed at different times most nights? If nothing changed in your relationship, would you want to be in this relationship in 5 years? These are 9 signs that you're turning from lovers into roommates. And then I'm going to break all of these down one by one. One, conversations feel like checklists. Two, intimacy is rare. Three, you're living parallel lives. Four, touch is minimal or absent. I'm not talking sex, I'm talking just physical touch in general. Six, conflict gets replaced with indifference. Seven, you start fantasizing about a different life. Eight, you stop sharing news with your partner first. Nine, there may be some resentment building. Here's some examples of like ways your conversations start to feel like checklists. You talk about bills, chores, the kids, what you're doing for dinner. You ask, how's your day? That's like how you start every single conversation. How was your day? How's your day? The deep heart to heart convos are missing in action and you stop sharing your inner world. Your dreams, your fears, your random thoughts all turn into work schedules, dinner plans, and household tasks. I remember at the end of my last relationship, he almost asked me every single day, "How was your day?" or "What are we doing for dinner?" And I just remember those questions setting me off. Like, do we not have more to talk about than that? Can we not talk about more than that? And so I just found our conversations were so monotonous. It got to the point where I just didn't. want to communicate anymore because I was so over those questions. Your intimacy is rare. The sex is either non-existent or it feels like a task. There's no passion, no spark, no pursuit. The relationship becomes logistical instead of physical. This was a really hard one that I had to come to terms with. With my ex, really props to him because he never shied away from a difficult conversation. And he did something that my husband didn't, which was ask me when he felt weird energy coming from me or ask me questions when he felt like I was pulling away. And that was something that my ex-husband never did was, I was pulling away, but he never acknowledged it. And so major props to my ex from, asking the questions even though I might have given him answers he was unprepared for or didn't want to hear. And so he would ask me, "Are you happy?" Or one time he brought up the fact that he felt like we were roommates, and I remember it really hurting my feelings because, well, it was a gut check, and I felt like he was insinuating that only because we weren't having sex, and every time I turned him down from having sex, I felt guilty. I felt like I wasn't being a good girlfriend. I genuinely felt like there was something wrong with me, and it was just a really hard topic for us to talk about. And so I just remember one day he said that we felt like roommates, and my reaction wasn't great, because it hurt my feelings, and I did feel like he was blaming it on me, and I don't think he was. Looking back, he wasn't. He was more asking how we could fix it, but at the time, I'm so hard on myself. I take the responsibility for that most of the time, and I put it on myself to, again, change it myself. And yeah, I just remember that moment, like it hurt my feelings more than anything. And instead of reacting in a way of wanting to fix it, I acted in a way of he doesn't think I'm being good enough. He doesn't think I'm a good enough girlfriend, which I genuinely don't believe that's where he was coming from. You're living parallel lives. You share your space, but not your life. You have different routines, different goals, barely crossing paths. You start doing your own things, focusing on yourself. You stop trying to spend more time with them in the morning or the evening. You're watching TV or scrolling your phone without talking. I have so many examples of these with my husband, my ex-husband. Him and I worked so much because we were paying off our student loans. Like we had a goal of paying off our student loans as quickly as possible. And we did. We paid off just under $100,000 in 4 years. So shout out to us for doing that. But it definitely came at a price. We were rarely ever together and we were very focused on making as much money as possible. Another example is like with my ex, my most recent ex. We were struggling to talk about things other than the weather, how's your day, what's for dinner, that type of stuff. And I remember on our walks, we were trying to find like podcasts or audiobooks that both of us liked. And so we started listening to podcasts. It made it easier going on walks together because it didn't force us to have conversation, which looking back is more of like what we needed. But I was hoping the podcast would give us something to talk about. And then we even went as far to listen to like audiobooks in the car. And I made him listen to the first book of Akotar. Poor guy. Like he genuinely was such a trooper. And he listened to it. And I thought that because I had so much passion about it that we could talk about it, it would give me something to talk to him about. And just poor guy, but he did, like, good on him for trying, genuinely. It took away from us having to conversate, but I did it with the intention of hoping it would give us more to talk about. I think the nighttime routines are huge. I started going to bed later than him because I didn't want to get in bed and then him try to have sex with me. So our bedtime routine, him and I had always gone to bed together once we moved in together. We had always gone to bed together. And then I specifically remember the last few months, maybe 6 months that we were together, I was trying to wait later and later to go to bed just to avoid the awkward, like him trying to have sex with me. And I just didn't want to turn him down or have to give him a reason to turn him down. So that one is huge, the nighttime routines. Touch is minimal or absent. This is not sex. This is any other touch, the hand holding, the kissing, the slapping your ass when you walk by him, anything like that. No spontaneous hugs, kisses, or cuddles. Sitting on the opposite ends of the couch. I remember, especially with my ex, my most recent ex, I was scared to touch him at all, especially cuddle with him because I thought he would wanna have sex with me. And so I just remember I stopped cuddling him, which kills me because I'm a physical touch gal, like, cuddling is everything to me, but I could not cuddle him without him trying to make a move for sex. So I just cut that out completely, which was a killer. I remember there were moments when, we would cuddle and he wouldn't try to have sex with me, and those moments were huge and such a relief because I got to cuddle with him and then he didn't push me to try to have sex. And I'm not saying he's a bad guy for wanting to have sex. I think that's a very normal thing in a relationship. So this is not bad on him. I'm just sharing like my experience that I it was such a relief the moments where he didn't try to have sex with me when we were cuddling and stuff like that. I'll never forget the relief. You prefer being away from each other. You're more relaxed outside of the home than when you're inside of it. You breathe easier when you're not around your significant other. Going out and having date nights completely disappears. You start hanging out in different friend groups, or you're like relieved when they want to go hang out with the boys. Get out of here. Or you start going on like trips by yourself. You start doing more girls' nights, which I think it is so important for couples to have their own things. I believe that is huge, but then I also think you should have things that you do together. I think you should both love each other's friend groups, but if you don't, you should still let them go out and be with their friends groups because at the end of the day, they had those friend groups before you ever showed up. So I think that's so important that you have things separately and things together. But I remember in both of my relationships, I loved being apart. Could not get apart fast enough. I want you to go have your own hobbies. Go do something. Get away from me and go do something. Conflict starts to get replaced by indifference. When you stop arguing, it may not necessarily be a good sign. It means that one or both of you have stopped caring enough to engage or to fight for your relationship. Issues start going unaddressed. The hard conversations get avoided. You're emotionally checked out. Indifference can be way more dangerous than fighting. Peaceful doesn't always mean healthy. Sometimes it just means that no one is trying anymore. I remember when my ex husband and I started being emotionally unattached to him. I could not have cared less about anything. The fighting stopped because I didn't care. It was over. Women could have hit on him, and I'm naturally a jealous person now because of the experiences that I've had with my narcissist ex. But women could have come up and hit on him, and I would not have given a crap. I was just checked out, not fighting. It just wasn't worth it anymore. You start fantasizing about a different life. This is huge, you guys. I am so guilty of this. When you think about your future, you are only thinking about yourself and your partner is not involved with the plans. Your future plans become I instead of we. I'll never forget my ex husband in my marriage. There was about a year when I was going to bed every night and I was fantasizing about how my life would be different if I was not married. And I would talk myself into being like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to tell him that I'm unhappy and that this isn't working for me. It was a year. And promised myself that I would never do that again. That as soon as I started feeling unhappy in a relationship, that I would say something and or leave, either try to fix it or leave, right? And yeah, so for that whole year, I went to bed fantasizing about my single life, all the money I could save up, the things that I could do without having my husband. And it's so unfair to him. I absolutely know that is so unfair to him. I can't do anything about it now. What I can do about it now is acknowledge that it happened and change it so that I never do that to somebody again. And I have done absolutely the work on myself to take accountability for that and talk about it in therapy and do things differently. You stop sharing news with your partner first. With my recent ex, I absolutely stopped doing this. You stop sharing good news all the time. You don't feel emotionally safe to share things that are you're stressed about or that you're going through. Like every time something good to me happened, I did not go to him first because I just feel like he wasn't excited for me. So I would call like my sister or my parents, tell them something good happened, or I just wouldn't tell anybody or I'd post it on social media or something because I just felt like he wasn't excited for me. I felt like I had so many good things happening in my life and I don't want to say he didn't have anything good going on in his life, but he was just a very simple guy. Went to work, came home, didn't have, the ambitions to work up a corporate ladder or anything like that, which again, I think is fine. It didn't end up being right for me. And so, when good things were happening to me, I wasn't telling him about it. Just, I felt like I would tell him something good and then I wouldn't be excited that I told him because he wasn't excited about it. So I just stopped telling him altogether. There may be some resentment developing. This is the last one. One person is carrying more emotional labor. One person feels rejected sexually. Someone feels taken for granted. Small annoyances start turning into deep resentment. I feel like once you hit that resentment stage, there's no going back. I felt so resentful towards my ex husband, and of course, he didn't realize that. But I just had so much resentment. I was so pulled away. I was so checked out of the relationship by the time him and I finally separated and got a divorce that it was very easy for me to move on. because I was checked out already. For a year, I was thinking about leaving. So you can imagine how checked out I was when we finally separated. Once you are in the roommate phase, here's some ways to get out of it. I had to chat GPT this shit because I'll be fully honest with you, I've never made it back out of the friend zone, the roommate zone when I'm in a long term relationship. So I think going through the roommate phase in a long term relationship, especially a marriage, is very normal. And I think marriages come out of it often. So I obviously did not experience that. I think because I handled it so poorly, that's kind of why it didn't work out. I think if I would have communicated my way through it, we could have definitely been a little bit better off. So here are ways to get out of it. And I'm going to list them out and then we'll dive into each one. One, schedule intentional time together. Two, rebuild physical affection without pressure for sex. Three, start asking deeper questions. Four, change your environment together. Five, stop treating your relationship like a to do list. Six, talk about your roommate phase openly. Schedule intentional time together. A weekly date night when you put the phones away, morning coffee together before work, a walk together after dinner. I think all three of these really good, and I think me and my ex tried these. We were going on morning walks, walks after dinner when the weather was nice. But what we did was we would like listen to a podcast. And I think maybe what would have been better if we would have just walked, held hands, and talked about deep shit, talked about our relationship, ask each other questions. I think I was just so exhausted by that point, by feeling like I was carrying the conversation, that I just didn't want the pressure of having the conversation anymore. So it was just easiest to listen to a podcast. Rebuild physical affection without the pressure for sex. Start with low pressure affection, like 20-second hugs, holding hands during your walk, sitting closer together on the couch, kissing hello and goodbye. But like make them intentional hello and goodbye kisses. When they get home from work, greet them at the door. I think I'm so guilty. My ex would get home later than I would, and I wouldn't greet him at the door. In fact, I wouldn't stop at all what I was doing. I would say, "Hey, what's up?" We'd go on about our time. So, I think I would maybe like start greeting them at the door or vice versa. I think 20-second hugs are huge. I'm a very physical person. Hugging, it releases all the good stuff in your brain. And I think it is just so important. Sit there and hug someone for a long period of time. You don't have to talk, just hug them for a long period of time. And you better not freaking get a boner when you're doing this, men. Keep that shit in your pants. Don't get a boner when you're doing this. That will completely ruin it. Start asking deeper questions. Here's some deeper questions that you can ask. What is something that is stressing you out right now? What's something that you've been excited about recently? Is there anything you miss about how we used to be? I think those are huge. Obviously, the one where you're saying, "Is there anything you miss about how we used to be?" That really is a door opener to start talking about the changes that are happening in your dynamic. I think emotional intimacy will grow once partners feel seen and understood again. Change your environment together. Doing something new together releases the same chemicals in your brain that people experience when they're dating early on. I think that's incredible. Take a weekend trip somewhere you've never been. Try a new class, fitness, cooking, dance. Explore a new restaurant or neighborhood. New experiences will break your routine patterns and habits. Plus, I'm always up for trying something new. I think it's so fun to do new stuff. Stop treating your relationship like a to do list. You will see you start to become co managers of your house instead of romantic partners. Try having logistics time and then connection time. When you're not problem solving, you're just being together. Your partner should feel like you're a person, not their coworker. Also true. I think the connection time versus logistical time is huge. If you're going to have logistical time, at least make sure there's some connection time after it where you're not problem solving or talking about things that you guys need to do. Talk about the roommate phase openly. It's really easy to just drift apart instead of discussing what's actually happening. Instead of hiding it from yourselves and from others, be open about it. Your friends, they might be struggling too. You might have friends who are struggling with the same thing in your relationship. Wouldn't it be great to be able to open up and talk about it? Talking about it more and giving it a name makes it a lot easier to talk about and work on within your relationship. It makes it an us problem rather than blaming on yourself or your partner. And I think that is huge because I always make my problems an I problem. I try not to make it a we problem. And that's a big issue that I've had in my relationships. I think if you talk about it often, it is a less scary thing to talk about it. And it also forces you to acknowledge that it's happening. And you're never going to work on it if you don't acknowledge it. This is the point in the relationship where you need to know if it's worth fixing or if you just need to call it quits and walk away. If it's worth fixing, both people want the relationship to improve. There is still respect and care. Communication is possible, respectful, and intentional. Here are signs when it might be over. One partner refuses to engage. Emotional neglect starts occurring. No interest in reconnecting or putting in the work to do so. The intention's not there. You feel lonely or resentment in your relationship. Hey sisters, before we wrap up with our last segment, if you want even more behind the scenes, daily vibes, and want to get to know me on a more personal level, make sure you follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Abby Rodell. That's ABBYROEDEL. I share everything from fashion, fitness, and lifestyle to funny or frustrating personal moments. I'd love to see you there. Slide into my DMs and say hi. Welcome back, sister girls. I hope that that was an eye-opening sister circle. It certainly is for me. I made myself very vulnerable and talked about my struggles through my relationships. It's not something that I talk about a ton. And I think taking accountability and wanting to be a different person for your next relationship is huge. I think everybody should want that mindset. And I'm really doing my best to do that so that I can hopefully have a long-term successful, I don't know if I want to get married again, but a long-term successful relationship with somebody. I've got one inbox audacity. Him, do you breastfeed or bottle feed? Her, bottle feed. Him, can you show me your boobs squirting out milk? I can't find anything online. Her, no. Him, I'll buy you gift cards if you show me. Her, goodbye. Then blocked him. Obviously, he's got a fetish. There's got to be an OnlyFans market for this. Surely women are on OnlyFans doing this. If not, and you're listening and you're a mama and you're breastfeeding, there might be a market for you. Go get that bread. Get that bread, get that head, then leave. Go get that bag, sister. Go squirt some milk out of your titties on OnlyFans. That is all for this episode, sister girls. Thank you so much for tuning in. You guys, I know I say this every single episode, okay? But you guys have no clue how much it means to me when my friends tell me that they listen. I just am so fucking grateful. It's not something that you guys have to do. And yet you dedicate 30 minutes to an hour of your time listening to me every week. Like, you guys have no idea how grateful I am. So thank you so much for showing up and for your support. If you want to support further or you'd like to know how to support me further, subscribe to the channel that you're listening to. Follow my social media pages at Full Roster Pod. You can like the episode. You can comment on the episode. Leave me a review on the platform that you're listening on. All of that will help the platform push the podcast out to more people and will slowly grow this circle of sisters, which is the goal, of course. Next week, we are going to talk about being single forever. Are we going to be single forever or will you find your person? I already have a couple girls who have written in with some questions. If you feel like this is relatable to you, like you just feel like you're going to be single forever, feel free to write in. I would love to share your story. Everything's anonymous. You can either write me at fullrosterpod on Instagram or send me an email at fullrosterpod@gmail.com. I will share your story or answer any questions that you might have. Where can you find men to date? All of that stuff. Everything is fair game. So write in if you've got experience with this or feel like you're going to be alone forever. And if you're part of that group, definitely listen in next week. That is it for this episode. Next week, come back for more belly laughs and crazy dating stories. Until then, may your DMs be smooth and the red flags so obvious. See ya. Thank you for listening to Full Roster. You can find me on all socials at Full Roster Pod, and you can watch the video on YouTube. Like and subscribe to support the show and come back for the next episode. See you next week.